The Izumo-class ships are officially helicopter destroyers. But if we trust our eyes, we can easily see that they are aircraft carriers rather than destroyers. It is that simple. Well, why does Japan prefer to use this definition? Answering this question is a little bit complicated. As the weapon detective, we're investigating the Izumo-class, the so-called helicopter destroyer. The Izumo-class, the biggest Japanese warship since the Second World War, is one of the most important symbols of change in the Asia-Pacific region. However, its constitution forbids Japan from having an offensive weapon system such as an aircraft carrier. Before we start our analysis, let's briefly look at the history of Japan's effort to own an aircraft carrier after the Second World War and the ship. 3 years after the surrender agreement in 1945, the Allies permitted Japan to establish a Coast Guard force, the Japanese Maritime Safety Agency. As early as 1952, this agency planned to have an escort aircraft carrier for the anti-submarine warfare mission, shortly ASW. Surprisingly, the USA was not against it. In 1954, the newly established Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, shortly JMSDF, took over the aircraft carrier procurement plan. Tokyo initially considered acquiring one of the surplus Essex-class ships from the USA. However, in 1959, the construction of a new ship came to the fore. It would be a helicopter carrier and could carry 18 Sea Kings, 3 of which could be operated simultaneously. However, the project was terminated after a while because the existing helicopters were still insufficient for ASW operations. Tokyo decided to allocate the budget for constructing many cost-effective destroyers instead of spending money on a single, too expensive helicopter carrier. In the late 1960s, the new and improved Soviet conventional and nuclear submarines became the primary concerns of the JMSDF. As a response, Tokyo initiated the Third Defense Build-Up Plan in 1967. According to the Japanese naval planners, to deal with the Soviet submarines, the JMSDF would operate escort fleets with 8 surface combatants and 6 ASW helicopters. 8,300-ton helicopter destroyers, which would carry 6 helicopters, would be the core of these escort fleets. Yet again, this plan was terminated due to budget problems. So, Japan decided to build 2 smaller Haruna-class destroyers at first and 2 Shirane-class destroyers later. Each of these ships would carry 3 Sea Kings. In the late 1970s, Soviet bombers carrying long-range cruise missiles brought aircraft carriers back to the agenda. Unlike the previous plans, this time Japan also considered the jet fighters besides the helicopters. The Harrier was the only available short takeoff and vertical landing capable jet fighter at the time. However, they could barely intercept the new Tu-22M, whose NATO reporting name is Backfire. In the 1980s, Japan began to consider the acquisition of tanker and airborne early warning and control aircraft. With them, the Japan Air Self-Defense Force, shortly JSDF, could efficiently provide air cover for escort fleets. It was also a more cost-effective solution than a carrier with the Harriers. The first concrete step towards Japan's dream of owning an aircraft carrier was the 2 Hyuga-class helicopter destroyers commissioned in 2009 and 2011. They were followed by the Izumo-class. The first ship of the class, JS Izumo, was laid down in 2012. She was launched on August 6, 2013, which was the 58th anniversary of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. The ship was commissioned in 2015. The second and last Izumo-class vessel, JS Kaga, joined the fleet 2 years later. The ship has a design that reduces the radar cross-section. The air traffic control room at the rear of the bridge has a panoramic view of the flight deck. The gas turbines of the Izumo-class have electronic fuel control systems and are controlled from the bridge. The ship can produce 60 tons of fresh water daily, which can also use to clean the flight deck after air operations. The helicopter destroyer can refuel other vessels at sea and supply them with fresh water, but it cannot transfer aviation fuel. The ship has 2 large elevators for the aircraft. There are also 3 small elevators, 2 for ammunition transfer and 1 for connecting the flight deck to the medical facilities. The medical facilities include a 35-bed hospital, operating rooms, intensive care units, and dental treatment units. The Izumo-class has 2 hangars and 1 maintenance facility. Each hangar can accommodate up to 6 helicopters, while the maintenance facility has room for 2 others. Currently, in a typical mission, the Izumo-class carries 7 SH-60K ASW and 2 MCH-101 utility helicopters. However, the ship can accommodate 14 aircraft. This number can be increased to 28 for short-term operations. The Izumo-class can operate 5 helicopters simultaneously. 1 SH-60K always waits for an alert on the deck. This helicopter is rotated with another one every few hours to avoid the negative effects of the sun and salty water. The ship can carry up to 400 Marines to support amphibious operations and 500 people in disaster relief operations. In 2018, Japan decided to modify the Izumo-class vessels to make them suitable for the F-35Bs and V-22s. It is a 2-stage plan. As the first step, their flight decks were reinforced to endure the F-35B's additional weight and the heat and forces of the jet engines during the vertical landing. Modification works for JS Izumo and JS Kaga were completed in 2022 and 2024 respectively. In the second phase, their current trapezoidal flight decks will be modified into a square shape, and hangars and the maintenance facility will be modified. The Izumo-class will not be fitted with a ski jump ramp since, along with the ship's heavy bow-mounted sonar, the ski jump ramp could cause a balance problem. Japan has already ordered 42 F-35Bs, which will be operated by JSDF, not the JMSDF. Still, they will be deployed in the New Tabaro Air Base near the JMSDF's Kure base, the home port of JS Kaga. Nevertheless, the Japanese government has announced that there is no plan to deploy these aircraft on the Izumo-class ships. Yet, everybody knows we will eventually see them on the flight decks of the Izumo-class. On October 3, 2021, 2 US F-35Bs performed the first vertical landings and horizontal takeoffs from the JS Izumo. The US Marine Corps plans to continue its F-35B operations from the Izumo-class to train the Japanese crew. The complement of the Izumo-class is 470 people without the aircrew. The ship has a length of 248 meters, a beam of 38 meters, and a draught of 7.3 meters. Its standard and fully loaded displacements are 19,500 and 28,000 tons respectively. The combined gas and gas configuration propulsion system comprises 4 28,000 horsepower GE IHI LM2500 IEC gas turbines. The top speed of the Izumo-class is 30 knots. The ship's OPS-50 active electronically scanned array radar performs air search and air traffic control missions. Unlike the other OPS-50 radars on other Japanese vessels, it only has the C-band search antennas. The X-band tracking antennas have been eliminated since the Izumo-class does not have long-range weapon systems. The Izumo-class has a QQ-23 bow-mounted sonar. It is not for ASW missions, but to detect a possible torpedo attack. The ship has 2 Mark 15 Phalanx and 2 SeaRAM close-in weapon systems. The SeaRAM combines the radar and electro-optical system of the Mark 15 Phalanx Block 1B with an 11-cell RAM short-range air defense missile launcher. Unlike the RAM, this system can act autonomously from the ship's radar. Thanks to its passive radar homing capability and infrared guidance system, the SeaRAM can intercept stealth anti-ship missiles. The effective range of the air defense missile with Mach 2 speed is over 9 kilometers. The rate of fire for the 20mm 6-barrel Mark 15 Phalanx is 4,500 rounds per minute. Its effective range is about 1,500 meters. The Kongo, Atago, and Maya-class destroyers provide area air defense for the Izumo-class in an escort fleet. Due to its constitutional restrictions, Japan cannot have an offensive weapon system like an aircraft carrier, which brings to mind the question, is the aircraft carrier an offensive weapon system? For modern weapon systems, finding a concrete mission definition is always hard. They can conduct both offensive and defensive duties. A destroyer is an escort ship whose mission is to protect the fleet. However, its current examples have much greater offensive capability than the Second World War battle cruisers. A country could use the same fighter jets to defend its airspace or to conduct an airstrike on other countries. Kamikaze drones could be operated to stop enemy advances or conduct deep strikes. Besides, the concept of offense and defense have many gray areas. For example, the preemptive strike is an aggressive concept, but its purpose is to prevent inevitable aggression. So we cannot say that an aircraft carrier is just an offensive system. Also, the aircraft carrier is not a single type of naval vessel, there are many subtypes. Thanks to its supercarriers, the USA can rule the seas and conduct operations against any nation overseas. British, Chinese, French, Indian, and Russian medium-type aircraft carriers have formidable combat capability. However, they can control only some areas and are not a real threat to many countries. The small aircraft carriers are ideal platforms for ASWDDs, supporting multinational operations or fighting against countries with limited military capability. So even if we define the Izumo-class as an aircraft carrier rather than a helicopter destroyer, its offensive capabilities cannot be compared to the aircraft carriers of the USA, the UK, India, China, and Russia. The Japanese ships are more similar to the Italian carrier Cavour. Why does Japan define the Izumo-class as a helicopter destroyer? The answer is obvious. Tokyo doesn't want to be aggressive. Does changing the name make a real difference? Interestingly, it works. For example, to avoid the limitations of the Montreux Convention, the USSR built aircraft cruisers. China promised not to convert Varyak into an aircraft carrier, so she could pass from the Turkish Straits as a tourist attraction ship. Japan has promised not to put its F-35Bs on its so-called helicopter destroyers. Let's face the fact that it's not convincing. Does Japan truly need an aircraft carrier? The East China Sea is a problematic area. All countries in the region have sovereignty disputes and do not trust each other due to the bad memories of the past. The People's Liberation Army Navy must sail the Pacific through the Miyako Strait, which is approximately 250 kilometers wide between the Miyako and Okinawa Islands. Naha Air Base on Okinawa Island is the southernmost fortress of the JSDF, but it is too far from the nearest air bases on Kyushu Island. Between them, there is a gap of over 700 kilometers. An aircraft carrier is the best option for Japan to control this vast area. Of course, there are some other auxiliary airfields in the region, yet they cannot safely house a large number of fighters. Japan has to concentrate its air power at the Naha Air Base in case of a war in the south. It would not be wise to deploy many aircraft in a single place, considering the Chinese H-6K bombers' long-range strike capability. An aircraft carrier is the easiest way to solve this problem. Thanks to the Izumo-class ships, the JMSDF can operate far from the air cover of the JSDF, giving Japan defensive depth. The world is changing and the Second Cold War is rising. In this new era, Japan is naturally transforming. The Izumo-class is one of the most shining symbols of the New World Order. 2 ships of this class have constantly joined multinational naval exercises. They sent the message that the region needs Japan to balance China. Many countries in Asia-Pacific, which have bad memories of the Second World War, have received and accepted this message. Thanks for watching our video. And please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click the bell button to be notified of our new videos. Also, you can now click the join button to support our channel. And as always, we would greatly appreciate all of your likes, comments and shares.